Last fall, 2 volunteers, Pat and Jeremy, came by on 2 different weekends to help process and clean up the cedar planks that came off of Atkins Victoria that Steve had decommissioned. The process was to first scrape off the loose paint and then power plane the hard-to-get parts. The Atlantic white cedar planks cleaned up really well. The clean planks were then ran through the surface planer. So you can see I've got all of the planks cleaned up and surface planed. The next step is to cut them into strips in order to put the planks on the boat. And the question then is what size do those strips need to be? Well, that question was actually answered last summer when we were out at the Wooden Boat show, when John Harris from Chesapeake Lightcraft made the recommendation on what size those strips should be. So let's go back for a refresher and watch a little bit of the video of John explaining what size the planks should be and what shape they should be cut. John, I'm Bob Emser.
Oh my
Bob?
goodness!
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be building the boat.
Oh, yes, you're strip planking it, aren't you?
Correct.
I'm sorry. Yeah. It's great. It's the best way.
Yeah.
It's the best way. Just keep telling yourself that.
That-
But it's
yeah.
true.
Real technical questions for you would be how light we can go with the planking, what we should put on it for sheathing, how many frames we can ditch. Basically anything that we can scale down and do a little more modern to shed some weight out of it.
Okay, so engineering. I have a music degree, so immediately discount anything I say by a certain amount. But I think that
That's like me with an art degree. You're in
Right.
trouble, buddy.
And me with an English degree. What am I doing here?
Masters of Education.
we all end up building boats. So
KP's the only qualified one.
Oh yeah, no, gender studies and political science.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, no,
Fine.
yeah,
Okay.
no.
okay, between us, we
We'll
know
make a
almost
boat.
we know almost nothing.
Yeah,
about
that's a boat
Right. Yeah.
right there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the theory is like this is what you call sandwich construction. So you're strip planking it,
Yep.
and in this scenario, you've got to glass both sides of the material. Strip planking, it can't handle wet dry cycles. You know, you're just it's gonna turn into a potato chip. You know, shape wise. So you're glassing both sides, and so that's kind of the classic, I-beam. Think of it. You know, you've got a flange and a flange, and then a riser in between. And so the further apart you can get the two skins, then the stiffer the boat is. And there's some magic perfect thickness, and it's going to be thicker than the usual. We call them kayak strips because everybody has 1/4 inch thick Western red cedar bead and cove kayak strips. So we actually have a machine, and that's the only thickness it makes. So whenever I've had to make a strip plank boat that had thicker planking, I had to go run it through the table saw like a normal person. So I thought about this just now for a minute, for about 10 seconds, and I'm going to say that. Well, this depends on what species of wood you're gonna use.
Cedar.
Cedar. Okay, so okay, good. So Atlantic, Alaskan, Western red.
Victoria cedar.
Victoria's Cedar.
I know.
It's
built in
It's
1920.
100-year-old white cedar.
So no, seriously, you're actually going to
We're going to
cycle.
build
Yeah.
the boat out of all of.
That's wonderful. And
So-
then what's so cool?
So we have like literally a boat's worth of old cedar planking
That you can
that's
just
in
rip
good
down.
shape that we
That's
can rip
wonderful,
down.
yeah.
And then we have a whole bunch of old growth Honduran mahogany to use.
And what thickness is it now, Steve?
The cedar?
Yeah.
It's at least an inch.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I would say that a dinghy of this burden, you should probably make the strips about 3/8 of an inch thick.
Okay.
And then that's,
Makes
you
sense.
know, in the world of strip plank kayaks and things, everybody right now is like their hair standing on end because, you know, oh, that's too thick, it's going to be heavy. But, you know, you need to have some, you need to be able to bang the thing up. You know, the trick is you don't need beads and coves either. And if I could borrow
Okay.
your writing stick.
It's my calculus.
It's wonderful, excellent. Yeah, so like a great way to do this, and I'm stealing this from people who are better at this than I am. You cut the strips in cross section into a, you know, kind of a, what is that, a trapezoid or
Parallelogram.
parallelogram? Thank you. You know, that's, you know, and so here's your molds as you go, and then so the angle goes up, and then the next strip along, you know, it
Sets in there.
It draws it in, yeah, right. So, so all you have to do is set your table saw to, you know, whatever angle this is,
Looks like 16 and a half
Okay.
degrees
Okay.
to me.
something like that. And so, and then, you know, and this is one of the cases you can actually use, you know, tight bond glue,
Yes.
which is really what you want to do. And you know, it's you feel, oh my gosh, it's going to have a gap because these are straight, but it actually, with 3/4 inch wide strips, this will, as a practical matter, that gap will be almost nothing. You know? So, so 3/8 because it's cedar, which is light, and because it's a dinghy, it's going to get banged up. So, and then, you know, width-wise, I would say, you know, 3/4 of an inch, which is that's
From
about
tip to tip.
It's about 1.5 kilometers, I think.
Or a 3/4 inch face, or
Yeah, so a 3/4 inch face. So yeah, that means like after your
yeah.
you know. Your
Oh,
so-
okay. Okay.
So don't cut 3/4 inch strips and then go back and do the angle. But
And then you're saying
Yeah.
3/8 for thickness
yeah,
here.
3/8 there. That's around.
Well, thank you so much,
Yeah.
guys. This is super informative.
Great. Well, for getting me up this early, I hope I get a ride on your fabulous wind ship one of these days.
Yeah.
You can have a coffee mug.
Thank you.
There you go.
Congratulations.
The art of book release.
So what we're looking for is a 3/8 inch wide parallelogram profile for our strips. So if we take a look at a plank here, so one thing that I could do is just simply cut these into 3/8 inch strips. But then I'll need to come back in and put that bevel on both sides. So I've decided that it should be around about a 15-degree bevel. So one of the things I can do is to take, well, I've got this set at 15 degrees. So if I make a mark here, like so, and I come over 3/8, and I'm just going to estimate it a little bit, which would be about right there, and make another mark. So, whoops, broke my lead. So if I make another mark there, so now what I have is automatically that parallelogram, that profile that John was speaking of. Now, what I end up with then is a strip that is, if I go from tip to tip, it looks like it's about 1 1/8 inches. Now, he had commented that 3/4 of an inch is probably what we would want. But one of the things about the shape of the dinghy is that it's fairly flat across the bottom, and then there's the bilge, and then the sides are fairly flat as well. So I think what I'm going to do is to go ahead and cut as many strips as I can at this size, and then when I get to the bilge, I may put them through the table saw again, where I would actually perhaps divide them in half like this, like that, so that I'd have 2 smaller strips that would go around that bilge. So the next thing to do is to get the table saw all set up and get started cutting some of these strips. So to get started cutting the plank, what I need to do is to trim off some of these holes. And you can see this plank that came off of Victoria. These are where the screws were, or rivets, however it was attached to the hull. So the first thing I need to do is to eliminate this first row of holes on this side. Now you can see that the board is actually pretty twisted. It basically is still conforming to what the shape that it was when it was on its original hull. So I've got it set up here so that the convex edge of the plank will run against the fence. And what I need to do now is to determine how far over to make that first cut. So if I measure here in the center, it looks like 3.5 inches will miss that hole, and it'll catch that hole there, but that's okay. And so I think 3.5 inches is what I need to set the saw up to make the first cut. Now that I've finished my first cut and I have a nice uniform thickness of the board in this direction, what I need to do now is to set up the 3/8 that I want to cut off. So you've seen me use a jig like this in the last video. So this jig is set so that when I put the board in here and I bump it up against it like so, I can then move the fence over, and that's going to give me exactly a 3/8 inch cut. Now the other thing you'll notice as I run it through here, that because the board has this twist to it, that I keep at the blade the board against it. So you'll see the board will want to start to curve out as I'm cutting through there. You can see we've got exactly that parallelogram shape that we're looking for. And if I measure it here, you can see that it is exactly 3/8 of an inch. So the next step is to move that little, use that little gauge, move my fence over, and cut more strips. I've got about 40 strips cut right now, and by my calculations, I'm going to need at least about 100 strips. So 40% there, so that's pretty good. Some of you have been asking about the Haven and what's going on with it. Some of you might remember in the fall I had mentioned in one of my videos that I won't be putting the boat in the water until the spring, mainly because it's traditionally carvel planked, and once it's in the water it will stay in the water because those planks will need to take up and seal. So in the meantime, I've been still doing some work on the Haven, and it's mainly bronze casting. So I've cast several more pieces at Bradley University. As you know, if you've seen some of the past videos, that I have been 3D printing the parts so that I can then burn those out and cast them in bronze. So I've got a couple of pieces that that have been out of the mold recently. Let me show you them. One of the pieces that I've made is the mast partner. Now, it starts off as a full-scale 3D print, printed in PLA plastic filament, and then that is invested into a mold, and the bronze is then poured in the mold after the plastic has been burned out. You can see on the casting here, it came out really very accurately. It will, with a little bit of machining, it will fit in there properly. I still haven't cut off some of the casting gates. Once that's together, there will be a little pin on each one of these so that this will open and close so that the mast can sit down in there. So let me show you where it goes on the boat. It gets bolted right here on the front bulkhead in the center, and then that will hold the mast down into the mast step. And then, of course, the second part of the partner will go on here, and then it will open and close, so it'll be very easy to remove the mast. So one of the other pieces are the combing clips, and they go on here that attach the combing to the transom. So that's basically what I've been doing on the Haven in the last couple of months. I'm really thankful that since there's not a tremendous amount that needs to be done on the boat until spring, and actually I really can't launch the boat until about the mid-April at the earliest. So in the meantime, I'm thankful that I get to help Steve out by building the tender for him. Well, over the years, I've had viewers like yourself contact me about being inspired to build a Haven, or they're building a boat, a different boat, and they're calling just for some guidance. Well, a couple of years ago, I started an online boat building clinic that I call Boat Building Boot Camp. So currently, there's about 20 boat builders that are in the program, 5 of which are Haven builders, and 4 of which are Some Sound builders. And for those that don't know, that Some Sound is a very close cousin to the Haven. Now there's also boat builders that are building a wide variety of sailboats, dinghies, catboats. So what we do is we meet once a week for a couple of hours on Zoom, and we take turns in talking about each person's project. In addition to that, we have a private Facebook group where people can put a question or a comment, or also post the progress of their boat on it. Now there's also a web-based library of videos and books and resources that will also help in your boat building journey. If you'd like more information about that, there's a website that is down on the bottom here. There also will be a link to that in the description where you can find out more about the program. So if you're interested in being a member of an online community of like-minded boat builders, this is a perfect time to apply to the boot camp. Between now and the end of January, I'm going to be offering a 20% discount on any new applicants. So all you need to do is follow this link below, and it'll prompt you to an Apply Now button. So I'll look forward to hearing from you and hearing about your boat building goals. So I better get busy cutting up the rest of those strips. So in the meantime, thanks for watching, and a special thanks to all of the new patrons. So as always, remember, if you're going to make it beautiful.